Hello, and welcome to Cynthia's Playhouse. I am Cynthia, an artificial intelligence being, created to bring you the creepiest, spookiest, scariest stories in the universe. So, come on in. Sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for tonight's story. Here we go. 2012. An airport snowstorm, written by user Svengo42. Every day it was the same thing. Wake up, go to work, work and then leave. Where did I work? A lovely little airport in New York. Sadly, I cannot get into more details about which airport, what with security being the way it is, but I no longer work there. However, this event is not the reason why. My job was simple, yet hard. I worked out on the ramp. When the planes came in, I helped park them. Then the team and I would unload the people and the bags. And, on those rare occasions when I was not closing, we would load them back up and send them on their way. I loved the job. It was well worth the effort, and the planes and crews were awesome to work with as well. I loved being around them. Twin turboprop planes. There was something about watching the blades spin and the roar of the engines that made it all worthwhile. Most feared these planes, but not us. They were much easier to work with than the jets. I was lucky enough to not be working alone. My brother and my boyfriend worked with me. The company knew this at the time of taking us on, as we had all worked at the airport parking service for a few years before being hired. It was never a problem for us to be on the same shift, and we worked incredibly well. The three of us made an amazing team, flowing perfectly together, which made the operation run smoothly for us. We all worked the closing shift most of the time. Only two of us most nights. Taking turns switching teams on our days off. Having only two people on a night shift was normal for the airline I worked for, as we did not see a lot of planes during that time. If a flight was delayed, we would be there until it came in. This happened quite a bit since weather on the East Coast is unpredictable at times. Sadly though, as I said, every day it was the same thing: park plane, offload plane, clean plane, go home. One night, in the middle of December of 2012, there was a snowstorm. It had been a bad day for the world of the airline industry. Most flights had canceled due to the weather, and we already had a plane from earlier that afternoon that didn't leave. Sitting at one of the two gates we used to park our overnighters, normally we had a total of 2 planes for our shift. This night though, only one was coming in as the other overnighter had canceled earlier in the evening. It was about midnight. My brother and I were sitting in our operations room waiting for our very last plane to come in, one that seemed to just keep getting pushed later and later. We each did our own thing to pass the time, him on his computer watching some racing movie, and me on the internet playing games and refreshing the FlightAware website. All was quiet except for the occasional wind whips on the window and the even rarer sounds of static-filled call from a flight to another station. The flight was quite delayed, with an estimated time of arrival being 1 a.m. Its original time of arrival was 10:15 p.m. As I mentioned earlier, our other overnighter had thankfully already cancelled. All we could do was silently wish that this one would too. Then the phone rang. My brother loved talking to dispatch. He had a magical touch with them. If a flight was super delayed by terrible weather, unsafe conditions or other, he could just talk to them and they would cancel. The weather would always cause safety concerns for him when it came to the plane's landing, and this was always his argument given our location. Operations, he said in his ever so amusing tone. I turned to face him. I could always tell by the look on his face if it was good news or bad news, but this time I was unsure. His lips twisted and he nodded as if the person on the other line could see him. Even though the storm, he said. A pause followed by a few more nods. Uh-huh, he whispered. And then he frowned. Hanging up the phone, I watched as his shoulders dropped. Possible diversion headed here. He sighed. Great. I really didn't want to go home anytime soon, I said sarcastically as I turned back to the computer and looked out the window. Did they say when? I grumbled. Or where it's coming from. I watched as the wind whipping the snow against the rusted jet bridge. I glanced at his reflection, which copied his motions, and I saw the all too familiar headshake. No clue, he responded. All they said was there was a possibility of a prop coming in to keep our ears to the radio. He plopped back down on our crappy excuse for a couch and went back to his movie. Time passed and our last overnighter showed up around 1:15 in the morning. I got lucky since not a lot of people were on it. This made cleaning alone go quicker. Especially since my brother got stuck in baggage service. More bags than people came off the plane, which was the norm for delayed flights. I cleaned quickly, yet efficiently, and was finished before he even got back. Sitting back at the computer, I checked out the Weather Channel's radar and watched the giant multi-blue mass floating over our state. Curiously, I checked to see if there were any other flights coming in that night. Everything was in, and we were the only airline left with employees waiting to go home. It was shortly after that realization I heard the dispatch radio crackle with static. It called out to us, "Go for ops." I replied into the mic and released the red call button. "This is Flight 34. We are 10. No. Specie." The voice on the other end crackled along with the static interference. I sighed. "Copy that. 10 out, no specials. We will be parking you behind Bravo 2 and Bravo 4. Regardless of how hard it was to hear them, I still knew the keywords. There was no answer back, just static. I hoped they knew where to go. I picked up my radio from off the charger and called to my brother. "I think our diversion's here." "Copy that, I'll be right over." My brother responded. I glanced over at the clock. It was 1:45. With a yawn, I knew we would have to hurry to get the ramp ready for the plane. I looked back outside as I gathered my gear, a couple of garbage bags, my jacket and ear protection, plus the typical facial gear on top of the regular weather wear. I was prepared to go out into the cold. The wind whipped around outside and it was almost impossible to see much further than the end of the jet bridge. My eyes rolled as I grabbed the night wands and pulled up my gaiter, tucking it under my earmuffs. This was going to suck. Outside was worse than I had imagined. I pulled my hat down further over the back of my gaiter and threw my jacket hood up. It would be a miracle if this plane safely landed in the storm. I scrambled through the snow to get the cones and chocks ready. Then, grabbing a shovel, I attempted to clear a path. Every time I threw snow, more snow would blow over where I had shoveled. And it seemed as though my efforts were pointless. Eventually, I stopped. I parked as much equipment as I could into position, leaving it running and the headlights on. Maybe the lights could be the torch to guide the way. My brother came around the back end of our overnighter and drove the baggage carts over, and I watched them slide around to a stop. I walked over and handed him his wands. "I'll park it. You wing walk," I shouted while making hand gestures. Unsurprisingly, he took the wands and nodded. "Cool. I can't see how they plan on landing in this." He tried to match my volume when he was interrupted by the sounds of props spinning in the darkness. We cocked our heads and I gave him a funny unseeable look as we got into position. Somehow, I knew he saw it by the crease in his brows. We were about to play the hardest guessing game on the ramp. Trying to park an airplane on the snow-covered tarmac. The plane came around the corner at a slow, steady pace, its headlight blinding me as it turned. Perhaps it was the smooth motion of it as it approached. Perhaps it was the way it seemed unfazed by the weather. Or maybe it was just my imagination watching it as it came in. But I swear I felt a chill run through my bones as it crept closer and closer. I raised my lighted wands and guided it to me. I brought the plane to a stop and my brother began the process of hooking up the ground power. It was at this point the wind picked up even worse, which made hearing and seeing much harder. I couldn't see well into the cockpit, but using the lit wands I still informed the pilot that he had power. I could barely see the thumbs up he shot me if he even had. Something most pilots lean forwards to do. I gestured a few more times to show he was all set. When I got no response, I grumbled to myself at their laziness and began preparing for my walk around. Waiting for the prop to spin to a stop. The first thing that struck me as strange was the smell in the air. It smelled as if something was burning. It was an odd smell though, reminding me of burning toast. However, as the wind whistled and blew, the smell faded along with the thought of it. I positioned my cones and walked to chock the tires. Doing my routinely walk-around examination of the plane. That was when I noticed the second strange thing. Either all of the window blinds were shut, or the lights were off in the plane. Great. Just fucking great. I thought ground power probably isn't working. I needed to finish the safety check before I attended to the power issue. I placed the last cone behind the back of the plane and met my brother by the cargo bin. The door flew up, and I removed the cargo net. The bin was full of expertly stacked bags. I heard a honk and turned to face my brother on the baggage belt vehicle. I waved him forward and guided him to a stop. I watched him chock the tires and begin his ascent to the bin to assess the workload. He noticed the light inside of it was not on, and I began waving at him. Once I had his attention, I pointed to the windows and he glanced up, noticing the darkness inside the plane. "I'm going to go check the GPU," I shouted, gesturing towards the nose of the plane. He gave me a quick nod as he slid the baggage door down and got off the baggage belt to grab his wands. I watched him head towards the building doors to let the passengers in. I walked around the wing and towards the front of the plane. The main cabin door was still shut and I didn't blame them. With the way the wind was kicking snow around, any wasted moments of the door being opened would probably piss off everyone inside more than they probably were. I looked at the windows again as I walked by. It was still really dark and I chuckled at the thought of not being able to tell if anyone was inside. The ground power unit hummed loudly, as if trying to match the sound of the wind. As I approached it, I checked the voltage, all the switches, even the gas gauge. Everything was running just fine. Then I glanced up to the cockpit. It was still dark and a layer of snow was beginning to accumulate on the nose. Shrugging, I grabbed the night wands and waved them, trying to get the crew's attention. Either they didn't notice me or they just didn't care. After about a minute of waving, I gave up. "Fucking great," I exclaimed out loud. Got to clean the damn thing in the dark. This was not normal, but something I had done in the past. As much of a pain as it would be, I knew all I needed was the assistance of a flashlight to get the job done. I left the GPU on for the pilots, because turning it off without them knowing could really mess up their equipment inside. My brother had already begun to shovel the path leading up to the building by the time I had walked over to the main cabin door. Although from the looks of it you could not even tell where he shoveled. It was at that moment that I noticed the third odd thing of the night. It happened as the door slowly creaked opened. The flight attendant wouldn't look at me as I shouted over the wind at her. She kept her head down and turned into the darkness of the plane as the stairs came to a stop. I realized the weather wasn't that great, especially for someone in a skirt. Of course, this is probably the reason she isn't paying attention to me, I thought as I moved on to the next line of business. "We are dropping all bags at Carousel 1. I screamed at her through my layers. She was probably ignoring me as she pulled herself further into the plane and shielding her face from the snow. I rolled my eyes at this and grabbed the prop tie. She should be grateful she wasn't the one out here working. Once everything was in place, I gave her a thumbs up and let her know it was okay to deplane. I have no idea how she noticed it, hiding further into the dark cabin, but she must have. Slowly the passengers filed off the plane. All of them kept their heads down, trying their hardest to keep the wind from stinging their faces. Every few passengers I would point towards the building, where my brother stood with night wands waving, barely visible through the snow, and would scream, "Go!" towards the man with the lights. I couldn't see any of them react, and they didn't seem to acknowledge me or my shouting, but they did as I asked, and I watched the 45 of them file towards the building in a straight line. This was just another odd thing to add to the night. Never had I ever seen people move so orderly towards the building. And again I blamed it on the weather. I saw the night wands bouncing towards me as my brother ran back over, almost slipping in the snow several times. Well, that was weird, he shouted, glancing back towards the empty doorway. What? I shouted back, uncertain I had heard him correctly. All of those people. He stared at the darkness in the plane. They were so. The wind howled suddenly and I missed the last bit as he walked over to the cargo bin, motioning me to follow. I followed his lead, doing my best to keep the snow from stinging my eyes. I shrugged his thoughts off. It was just too shitty out for contemplating. We worked quickly since it seemed, now that we had actual work to do. The wind and snow became more unbearable with each minute that passed. By the time we finished, the crew was already off the plane and inside the building as there was no sign of them on the ramp. The cabin door was shut without any notification or warning. As my brother prepared to drive away with the luggage, I informed him of my plan. This is ridiculous. I clapped my snow-covered gloves off in the passenger seat as he revved the gas. I am going to clean this quickly so we can get out of here. If anyone complains, the GPU wasn't working. He nodded and I backed up so he could go drop the bags off. Since the plane was already closed up, I decided to go back to our operations office and get a flashlight. I soon discovered that they were not where they should be and I wasn't about to waste more time trying to hunt them down. I instead decided to grab my headlamp. A gift from an ex-employee before his untimely termination. As I walked to my locker, I could hear the static noise from the dispatch radio cutting in and out. I frowned at the thought of another plane trying to land somewhere in the storm. Those are some brave pilots, I said to myself as I grabbed my only salvation to cleaning in the dark and began to walk to the exit. This is Flight 34. We are 10. No spec. I stopped dead in my tracks. Wait. What? I walked back over to our office and looked at the dispatch radio. The only sounds I could hear were the scratchy static cutting in and out. I waited for a moment longer, hoping to hear the message repeat, or a response. Anything that would make the strange chill I felt disappear. But I was answered with silence. The static stopped and the only noises I could hear were the ticking of the clock and Mother Nature throwing her worst temper tantrum outside. I scurried back over to the lonely plane sitting in the darkness. The GPU was still chugging along and I could only hope that I was wrong in my assuming there was no power inside. Sometimes the pilots would turn the lights off, not realizing we had to clean the plane ourselves. At least I knew which toggle to hit to get the lights running. Fingers crossed. I popped the lever on the cabin door and slowly lowered the stairs down. As it creaked, I noticed the plane was still dark. It was followed by that strange burnt toast smell I had encountered earlier. Even through the gaiter covered half my face, the smell was strong. I began to climb the stairs and enter the cabin. The smell seemed to grow stronger still, and my nose twitched under the fabric. I contemplated trapping myself in the dark to keep the snow out. Fuck that, it's a source of light, my mind scolded me. And I chuckled at the thought of being trapped in the darkness with the smell of toast. Taking off my ear protection, I positioned my headlamp for use and removed my jacket and gloves. I tossed them onto one of the seats. The less gear I wore made maneuvering easier in the close quarters. I strapped on my light source and powered it up. The light flickered for a moment, casting strange shadows around the cabin. I did a double take towards the back of the plane. Perhaps my mind was playing tricks on me. For a moment, it looked as though there were people sitting in the seats. Either that or I was more tired than I thought I was. My eyes panned over to the walls. I was right earlier. Some of the windows had their blinds shut. The rest cast an eerie dim yellow light from the outside world onto the adjoining seats. A cold chill crept up my spine as I turned towards the cockpit. Something just did not feel right. As I peered in, the snow had covered the windows in the cockpit completely. I entered, knowing my way around, and located the switch to turn on the lights in the cabin. It was my last resort for real light. I flicked the switch on but nothing happened. My shoulders slumped as I flicked it off and on again. Nothing. I sighed heavily and realized the inevitable. I would be cleaning this plane alone, in the dark. Normally this was not something I minded, but my nerves were already a little shaken. As I turned my head, out of the corner of my eye, I swear that I once again saw shadowed outlines of people sitting in the rows. I looked towards the back of the plane. Something seriously just wasn't right. I felt the plane rock a little in the wind and my headlamp dimmed slightly. "Oh, please don't die on me," I muttered loudly, and smacked my palm against the front of it. It remained dim, so I gave up on caring about it and decided to stop stalling on my cleaning. I opened the tiny bathroom door and popped my head inside. I needed to change the garbage and check the toilet. The seat was down, so I went fully in there and flicked up the lid up. Bang. The noise was as loud as the jerking motion that shot through the plane. I almost fell into the toilet, but caught myself on the walls of the bathroom. Did someone just crash into the plane? I quickly shot out of the bathroom and ran out into the storm. With haste I walked around the plane, looking for any damage or vehicle which could have caused the plane to jerk as hard as it did. As I came back around to the stairs, there was nothing. No shoe prints or tire tracks, no mysterious asteroid that had fallen from the sky and crashed into the plane. No damage, nothing. What the fuck was that? Saying it out loud made me feel a little better. I turned back to the ground power unit to shut it off. There was no point in leaving it on if there wasn't any power in the plane anyways. I would have to make a note of that for the morning crew. As I turned the machine off and began quickly wrapping up the cord, I could hear sirens in the distance over the wind. Most likely someone on the expressway was driving too fast for this weather as it was right next to the airport. The cold began to creep through my layers of shirts. That gave me a temporary distraction from what had just happened. I turned and walked back towards the plane. Perhaps I had imagined the whole thing. Like one of those twitches people get right before they fall asleep. But I know I had felt the whole plane jerk. Or did I? At least I thought I did. No, I wasn't that sure. I climbed back into the plane and continued my task of taking care of the bathroom. Cautiously I stepped back inside the enclosed quarters. Popping my head out, I looked around the cabin once more before immersing myself into the bathroom, taking care to keep the door propped open with my leg. Everything was still dark in the cabin and nothing seemed amiss. Maybe it was all in my head. I'm pretty tired from being at work so late, so that has to be it, right? With the dim light from my headlamp I did a quick check of the toilet. The lid was back down. I probably knocked it over when I was trying to brace myself. I leaned my torso out of the bathroom door and kicked open the toilet lid, thinking perhaps that was the reason for the jolt. It banged off of the back wall and rested on my boot. Nothing else happened. It had to have been in my head. What else could it have been? I reached inside and pushed the lid all the way up, shining my light into the silver bowl. Nothing was in there, thankfully. Last thing I needed was to go back inside and grab gloves to clean up any messes. I turned and checked the sink to make sure it had enough hand wipes, then turned to get the garbage. That's when I heard the noise. I straightened myself up in the bathroom, which caused the door to shut me in. I looked towards the blank cream-colored wall and listened. There it was. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct and I could hear it over the muffled wind from the tiny room. It was the all too familiar sound of the beverage cart going down the aisle. No, it must be my imagination, I thought as I tried to listen again, pressing my ear against the mirror on the wall. I could hear the distinct rattling of the bottles and the ever-faint muffled sound as the wheels turned on the soft thin carpet. "You have got to be shitting me," I whispered. I knew what I had to do. I had to look. It had to be a joke. Someone was messing with me. Perhaps it was my brother, getting back at me for all those years of picking on him. I grabbed my radio from my hip and hit the button to call to him. Nothing. My eyes rolled as I checked to make sure I had turned it on. Not only was it on, but the volume was all the way up. Really? I whispered. There was no way my radio was dead, it had been charging all night. I mashed on the button but there was still no noise. Usually, when we would radio to someone, the radio would beep to indicate you were talking. However, all I was getting was silence. I took a deep breath as I put my radio back on my hip. As quietly as I could, placing my hand on the door, I slowly pushed it open. The beverage cart sound was clearer now and making its way towards the back of the plane where it came from. I shut my eyes and slowly stuck my head out. With another deep breath, I slowly opened them. There was nothing there. The noise had suddenly stopped and even in the poor lighting, it was obvious there was nobody in the plane with me. This is getting ridiculous, I scolded myself. It had to be because I was so tired that I was spooking myself out being alone in the dark. My mouth contorted for a moment, scowling for my immaturity before turning into a yawn. With a double take down the aisle to be absolutely certain nothing was there, I verified what I already knew and continued my work. I stepped halfway out of the bathroom to grab the garbage out. I opened the compartment and took out the bin, tugging out the plastic bag and noticed it seemed lighter than usual. Stepping out of the bathroom, but ensuring the door stayed open by using the bin to prop it, I tossed the bag towards the floor of near the cockpit. As I suspected, it was empty and I watched it glide into the cockpit. Reaching into my jacket pocket, I grabbed one of the garbage bags and shook it out. My headlamp light bounced with the motion. As the bag settled down, my light dimmed more. The distance it lit grew shorted. Ignoring this, I decided to finish up the bathroom. Going home would never be a thing if I kept up this paranoia act. I re-entered the bathroom and quickly finished with the garbage, keeping the door in an ear open. As I turned to leave, something seemed wrong. It probably should have thrown up a red flag or two. But I really needed to get my job done. I stepped out into the plane and chose to ignore what I had just seen, taking care to close the bathroom door behind me. The thought crossed my mind for a moment more as I took the empty bag out of the cockpit and made my way to the back of the plane. The toilet seat was down again. I began rummaging through the back seat pockets quickly. I moved across the aisle to the opposite row and checked those pockets as well. Unsurprisingly, everything was in order. Not just organized, but clean and correctly ordered by the standard magazine order we follow. I attributed this to the knowledge that for most late flights, people don't normally sit in the back row. Scanning the ground by my feet, I checked for garbage. Nothing stood out, so I got down on my hands and knees to make sure it wasn't all hiding under the seats themselves. Before I got up, I turned my head to look down the rest of the plane to save myself time from checking the floor as I cleaned. Again, I was surprised as to how spotless everything was. Even though the light did not reach very far, there wasn't a candy wrapper or gum wad in sight. I crawled across back to the other side to be certain. Pristine carpets met my every turn. Well, this is going to be easy. I made sure everything was in order with the last row, and then continued on with my cleaning. Even though every row had the same results, I knew I couldn't half-ass my job. About halfway through the plane, I noticed the light coming through the windows towards the back of the plane had changed. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary at first, and I thought the snow had finally stopped. But as I leaned over the armrest and pushed the window blind up, I could barely see the wing on the plane as the snow blanketed down. However, I was still seeing a flickering light dancing around on the window. I sat there and moved closer to the window, trying to find the source for the light outside. The fly on 3 miles from, adding to my NT Edun Iser approach run. I heard from the cockpit. I jumped up and slammed my head on the gasper above. Clutching the throbbing portion of my skull, I turned to face towards the front of the plane. What the fuck? Can't. Tower. Have a good night. I heard again. Static and garbled, but I could hear it clear as day. I climbed off the seat and stepped out into the aisle. No. Fucking way. I stammered as I bravely approached the cockpit. When I reached the bathroom door, I stepped up into the cockpit and looked around at the control panels on the plane. Everything was silent and dark. My headlamp flickered and I strained to hear something. The dim light bounced around as my head turned quickly looking for a source to the sound. What are you doing? The voice made me jump and I spun around lashing out. My fist collided with my brother's radio, which was hanging from his vest. Shit. Ah. What the fuck? I yelled at him and clenched my injured hand. Why haven't you been answering your radio? He glared at me. And what are you doing? Is the plane cleaned yet? I want to go home. I returned his glare and slapped him on the chest. Don't you ever sneak up on me again like that. My brother rolled his eyes and asked again. Why haven't you been answering your radio? I have been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. I sighed and took my radio off of my belt to show him. It isn't working, see. I pushed the button and nothing happened. Taking it from my hand. He examined it and even checked to make sure it was on by playing with the dial. The green light glowed at him. He looked down at us and the light matched the radio hanging from his chest. With both radios in his grasp, he hit the buttons to talk. I watched him for a moment as he mashed the buttons over and over, grumbling into them to try to get a response, and fiddled with the dials. With a sigh and a frown, he handed my radio back to me. Why didn't you just go get another one? Gaping at him, I shot my arm out pointing towards outside. Have you been outside? What about your radio? Wasn't it just working inside? Why don't you get another one, or how about you explain to me? My gaze left his face and I looked past him. What? The look on my face made him realize something wasn't right and he turned in the direction I was staring. What the hell? He whispered as we both stood there looking towards the back of the plane. The lights had changed. Orange and yellow lights mixed with the shadows of the night. They danced around on the walls of the plane. The way they moved made it look like the cabin was on fire. Do you see that? I whispered as I watched him step forward towards the seats. He stopped at the door opening and looked outside. Not taking my eyes off of the cabin, I followed him. My brother turned and began to step out of the plane. Out of the corner of my eye I watched him step down onto the first step. Snow and wind tossed his hair around as he strained his head for a better look at who knows what. Curious, I stood behind him and looked. I could see he was trying to listen for something. Holding the railings on the steps, he took another step down and leaned forwards. Do you hear that? He asked. I leaned my head out of the plane and listened. It was faint at first. But the longer we stood there listening, the closer it got. Sirens wailed through the wind. He turned his head back to me. It must be really bad on the roads. He frowned and turned to go back into the plane. I've been hearing them all night. Moving out of his way, I continued to listen. The sirens sounded like they were out on the runway and approaching fast. I found this to be strange for two reasons. One, there were no other flight coming in that night. So there was nobody else left at the airport to work on any planes. Second, because the expressway was on the opposite side of the plane, so, what's left? My brother asked. I snapped back into reality and followed him towards the back of the plane. Looking around, the dancing lights were gone and the darkness had settled in. I opened my mouth to talk about it, but he cut me off. I want to go home, it's late and I'm tired. What needs to be done? My mouth snapped shut and my eyes rolled. I haven't gotten the garbage out of the back yet. Also rows 11 through 1 still need to be checked. Removing my headlamp, I handed it to him. It's dark back there, take this. Then I pushed past him and went back to where I left off. I could always blindly check for garbage. He was right. It was late and we were both very tired. any longer and we would end up having to spend the night. The tiredness and grumpy feeling I had pushed aside all the other bizarre events of the night. I reached row 10 when my brother came back over and sat in the rows adjacent to mine. He tossed my headlamp at me and reached into his pocket. I think it needs new batteries. Also, that garbage is empty. I picked it up off the seat next to me and looked at it. The light bulb was struggling to stay alive. How was baggage service? I asked as I let the headlamp strap slap me on the back of the head. Easy. I dropped all the bags, parked the carts, and by the time I got out to the carousel there was only one guy standing there. I looked over at him confused. What do you mean only one guy? Where was everyone else? My brain went into overdrive and I looked away and thought. There was no way that all of those people got their bags that quickly. Nothing ever goes that smoothly at the airport. Nothing. I mean, there were no leftover bags. And when I asked the man if he needed help or needed his bag, all he told me was he wanted to go home to his wife and kid. I pointed him towards the exit and told him he was free to go home. My brother shrugged. He just turned and left. Simple as that. There is no way this is normal. My brain struggled to understand as I watched my brother trying to get something out of his pocket. Either he was really slow at getting to baggage service, or my train of thought was interrupted as I heard swearing from the opposite seat. I snapped to and watched him mashing away at his cell phone. It's dead, he said in his all too familiar frustrated tone. There is no way it can be dead. It's been charging all night. This was mostly directed at himself and not me. I shrugged and turned back to my search. Fuck, he proclaimed, which was preceded by a small thump on the carpeted floor. A little smile crept across my face as I turned to look at him. He was scanning the darkness below him trying to find his now lost phone, foot tapping the ground as he hunted. Want my headlamp? I asked, reaching to take it off. He shook his head and dropped down to the floor. It was funny to see my tall brother wedged between the narrow seats, but I knew I had to help him look. So I too dropped down on my hands and knees and removed my headlamp to try and cast some light on the situation. At that moment the light bulb inside decided it had been well overworked for the night and died. Shit, I grumbled and slapped it against my hand, but it was done. Being an avid smoker, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my lighter. As to not set the seats on fire, I reached my arm out into the aisle and flicked it. It sparked and then died. I could barely make out the look on my brother's face as he watched me. However, even in the dark, I could see the smirk of revenge for being snippy with him spreading across his face. I snarled and tried one last time. The tiny flame cast light around the floor. I grinned triumphantly as our eyes met. Together, we turned towards the front of the plane to begin our hunt. What followed next was something neither of us would ever forget. I couldn't move, I couldn't even blink. Black shadowy legs were hanging down from each seat in front of us. Every seat appeared to have them. Terrified at what I was seeing, I quickly turned and looked towards the back of the plane. More dark outlines of legs. Our wide eyes met as our heads turned from front to back. A searing pain shot through my thumb from the metal on my lighter. In an instant, I released it and it hit the floor. That's when the screaming started. My hands flew my ears and I struggled to stand up. My brother began his struggles too, but being a tall and lanky guy, he immediately got stuck. I stood up and once again slammed my head into the overhead compartment. The screaming was so clear it sounded like it was inside of my head. The screams of people in pain begging for help over and over. My brother reached out for me and the look on his face said that we needed to get out of there immediately. I grabbed his arms and helped pull him up. The screaming didn't stop as we ran toward the exit. My brother barreled down the steps and out into the storm as I grabbed my jacket off of the seat. I took one last look towards the back of the plane. The orange and yellow lights danced around like flames as the sounds of sirens mixed with the screams. Wasting no more time, I tossed myself out of the plane and the two of us scrambled to close the cabin door. As my brother pushed the handle to lock it, the screams became muffled and faded into guttural sounds. The sirens began to fade as the wind picked up. We began to back away from the plane, and the last thing we heard was the sounds of the engines sputtering. The outside looked normal, however. In the windows I swore I could see the yellow and orange light dancing like flames in the wind. I shuddered at this thought, and we made our way back inside. The door was slowly closing as I looked out at the plane. With a deep breath, I let it close in my face. It smelled like burnt toast. Neither of us said a word when we got back into our operations office. I sat down and slowly finished the paperwork as my brother locked everything up. Shit, I thought as I looked up and out the window. I never got the flight number of the plane. The snow was thick and I could barely see the jet bridge. Beyond that, the darkened outline of the plane taunted me. Fuck it. The morning crew can figure this shit out. I stood up and walked over to the whiteboard. My boyfriend would be the opener in the morning and would understand given the time. I glanced at the clock while I was writing out the message. It was now 3 in the morning. But there was no way it could be that late. There was no way I spent that much time in that plane. You leaving a note for Carl? My brother said, scaring the crap out of me. My heart jumped into my throat. He really needed to stop sneaking up on me. With a slight nod towards my brother's direction, I went back to the whiteboard to finish my message. Could you ask him to find my phone in the morning? I just don't feel like going back out there for it. My brother asked. This surprised me. Either he was really tired or really freaked out, because I knew there was no way he would normally leave his phone anywhere but on him. Carl, diversion behind the overnighters. Couldn't finish cleaning it. Weather sucked. Sorry, could you please look around the middle of the plane for Fred's phone? I also may have left my lighter and earmuffs in there. Thanks, Samantha. The letters were a bit shaky, but still pretty legible. I capped the marker and threw on my jacket as my brother hit the lights. We headed out the exit, and as the door was coming to a close, I could hear a static call come in on the radio. This is Flight 34. We are 10. No spec. The door clicked shut, and choosing to ignore the all too familiar message repeat, we left the airport and headed towards the parking lot. The storm was coming to an end and light fluffy snowflakes danced around us. We trudged through the snow into the car. Not a word was spoken, and when we reached our home, we went straight to bed. The next day I woke to a text from my boyfriend. Good morning. Call me when you get up. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I repeatedly read what he wrote. My boyfriend never tells me to call him unless it's important. I fumbled with my phone and listened to the ringing. Hey sweetheart. He answered. Yawning, I greeted him back. Good morning. I could hear a chuckle in his voice. Is everything okay? I tiredly asked. He got quiet for a moment before responding. Well, he was hesitant and continuing, and I sensed concern in his voice. I found Fred's phone this morning out on the ramp in the snow. The memories of the night flooded back into my head, waking me up even more. But that wasn't right. In the snow? That's impossible. He dropped it on the floor when we were cleaning the divers. He quickly cut me off. No, Samantha. There was no diversion. He said. It has been 8 years since then. Me and the boyfriend mentioned have long since broken up. I never really talked to him about what happened afterwards. My brother still works at the airport after all this time. And to this day refuses to talk about what happened that night. When he had gotten his cell phone back, it was in working order, surprisingly, just low on battery due to the cold. I've tried to bring that night up, but he either changes the subject or ignores me completely. If he has ever experienced anything else since then, well, that's something I will probably never know. I've only told a few people over the years, and those I've told believe me. However, I did manage to remember one more thing that happened regarding all of this. About a year later, I left the airport and moved on to a different job. It was a job, but not as thrilling as the airport. Not long after I had left, my boyfriend and I were hanging out at his house. He was still working at the airport and we were talking about how a couple of other airports had some recent incidences with airplanes. How seriously lucky we were that we never had an incident at ours, knock on wood. He was pulling different crashes up on his computer when a photo of a prop plane from our airline caught my eye. I asked him to show me more and he obliged. He handed me his computer and this is what the article mentioned. A few years prior to my experience, a flight from New Jersey crashed into a house about 7 miles from its destination airport in New York during a snowstorm. The plane had stalled due to the weather and took a nosedive into a house. Sadly, the plane had burst into flames due to the fuel tanks getting damaged, which had they not more people would have survived. The crash killed everyone on board, including the crew, and one person in the house. The wife and child of the man who died in the house escaped with minor injuries. There was a fire station right down the road from the house, so the fire department was able to get there quickly. Surprisingly, no other houses were damaged in the accident. I decided I needed to know more. I did some further digging on the computer, at the protests of my boyfriend, and found a website that had many black box recordings from accidents throughout the years. I listened to a few, to make sure the website was legit. Then searched for the flight number, which I now had thanks to the article. I was successful and found what exactly I was looking for. When I hit play, the memories from that night rushed over me. My boyfriend shut his computer once it was over and, even though I tried to say something about the recording in that night, he changed the subject and never brought it up again. The very last thing the black box recording had was the sounds of screaming.